Hi, Rio Grande third graders. It's time to take some notes in our composition notebooks. Today we are going to focus in on our property of the commutative property, and we're going to focus on the standard, which is 3. So we're going to skip a line here. We're going to do a page 6, and our standard that we're going to talk about is 308.5, which is properties of multiplication. So remember, this goes in your blue math composition notebooks. And remember that anytime you need to, you can pause this video so that you can stay caught up with the specific place that you're at. So we're going to turn to page 6. So remember, we have 2 pages for table of contents. Our page 1 is with place value. Page 2, we talked about rounding to the nearest 10. On the back of page 2, we did rounding to the nearest 100, which Miss Badger's I haven't filled in yet. Multiples of 10 chart. And on page 4, we did our multiplication anchor chart. We went to the back of page 4 and talked about using multiplication with repeated addition. Then we recently took notes on multiplication using arrays. And now we're going to turn to page 6, and we're going to, and remember, you're just going right to the next page. We're going to talk about the properties of multiplication. So the first property of multiplication that we talk about is the commutative property. The commutative property. Oops. So properties, I was correct. Properties of multiplication. Now there's 3 different properties. This property is the one that we start with because it talks about just switching the order of your factors, but still having the same product. So we're going to write an I can statement. So I can use so this is the first one. So I'm going to put a little A there because this one is about the commutative property. So I can use the order property to find the product of 2 whole numbers. So remember, your whole numbers are your counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and continued so and so on. So of 2 whole numbers. So the order property, remember, tells us that we can switch the order of the factors, and we are going to write the word factors here because that's a very important vocabulary word. And when we switch the order of the factors, We know that the product does not change. However, the arrangement of the array or the number of groups is switched with the number in each group. So we can say that the order property is, and we're going to give an example here. So if I were to use 3 times 5, 3 times 5 is the same as, remember that isn't equal sign, means same as, so same as is the same as 5 times 3. Now, to prove this, we can use an array. So if I were to draw an array, I have 3 rows. So those are my rows. Each one of these blue lines can be considered a row, and that means that I would put 5 in each row. So I have 3 rows of 5. Or if I rotate and switch the columns with the rows, what happens is I rotate or turn. So if we turn, right, if we turn our array, then it becomes 5 rows with 3 in each row. So if we turn this array, we are now going to have 5 rows of 3 instead of 3 rows of 5. So we switch rows with the columns. And I'm just going to put a little and sign. That's an and. We switch rows and columns. Now, if we were to do this as, for example, groups, we would switch the groups with the number in each group. So we could also say that the number of groups gets switched with the number in each group. So I have 3 groups with 5. Which is still going to give me 15 because 5 plus 5 plus 5, and this is how I prove that this is still the same, is the same as 5 groups, but now I have 3 in each group. So really and truly, there's still 15 in here, because if I were to take 1 from here and put it in here, there's 2 more here. I would be able to rearrange these and make 5 in each one of these groups. But I would take away 2 of the groups because then I could have 2 empty groups. So we still have 15. So it's 3 plus 3 is 6. Plus 3 is 9, plus 3 more is 12, plus 3 more is 15. So we can see these are equivalent because they still come up to be 15 as the sums. So our product here would still be 15 because we can use our evidence and prove here that they are still going to be 15 total. So those are your notes for today on the properties of multiplication. Remember, this is the commutative property, And so we call it the order property of multiplication. It might be a good idea if you highlight this just to keep in memory what that property is, or what this is showing you as far as the property of multiplication. So we have 2 more properties to go after this, but we will talk about those a little further as we continue talking about multiplication. So make sure you get these notes into your composition notebook, and we will see you soon.